Welcome to Whispers from the Cottage, a quiet place to slow down and rest without needing to become anything more. Tonight's story returns to Willowmere, a small village that moves gently through the seasons, where evenings arrive without asking questions. It is mid-February now. Winter is still present, but something has softened. Tonight, we follow someone who knows how to be alone without feeling apart. There is nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to hold. You can simply listen and let the evening unfold. The bell above the door rings softly as it closes behind the last visitor. Not sharply, not as an ending, just enough to be noticed. The sound lingers for a moment in the air, then settles as if the shop itself has absorbed it. The space grows quieter in stages, not all at once. The kind of quiet that arrives gently, without asking anyone to adjust. She remains behind the counter, her hands resting lightly on the wood. The surface is familiar beneath her palms, smoothed by years of use, warmer in some places, cooler in others. She does not move right away. There is no need. The day has loosened its hold. Outside, mid-February, light hangs in the street longer than it did a few weeks ago. It is pale and steady, neither hopeful nor heavy, just present. Snow still traces the edges of the pavement, pressed thin now, marked by footsteps that no longer crunch when they pass. She exhales slowly. This is her favorite moment of the day. Not when the shop is full, not when conversations unfold between the shelves, but this quiet afterward. The space between what has been given and what has been released. She reaches for the small lamp near the counter and switches it on. The light pulls softly across the surface, touching the spines of nearby books, warming their colors. Further shelves remain dim, shapes suggested rather than revealed. The shop does not need to be fully seen to feel complete. Earlier, the day had carried faint traces of Valentine's Day. Nothing loud. A single bouquet placed carefully in the cafe window across the street. A question asked by a customer and then gently withdrawn, a book chosen, set aside, then returned to its place with a thoughtful pause. On the counter now, one small card remains. Its envelope is still sealed, cream-colored, textured beneath her fingers when she lifts it briefly. She turns it once, then sets it back down. Not everything asks to be opened. She moves away from the counter, her steps quiet on the wooden floor. The shop holds her movement easily, as if it has learned her rhythm over time. Near the window, a chair stands slightly angled, pulled closer earlier by someone who wanted to sit just a little longer. She straightens it gently, not aligning it perfectly, only enough to acknowledge its presence. The gesture is habitual, comforting. Outside the glass, a couple passes by. Their steps are unhurried, their shoulders close but not pressed together. They move as if there is nowhere else they need to be. They do not look in. They do not need to. She watches them until they disappear around the corner, then lets her gaze soften. Willowmere moves this way in the evenings, quietly, without ceremony. At the small table, Near the back of the shop, her teacup waits. She lifts it, feeling the warmth that remains, though it has cooled slightly. She takes a sip. The taste is mild now, gentler than before. She prefers it this way. Warmth, she has learned, is not always about heat. Beside the cup lies a book she chose earlier in the afternoon, not for any particular reason. She opens it somewhere in the middle, letting the pages fall where they may. The paper smells faintly of dust and ink and something older than either. She reads slowly, not to reach the end, not to follow a story closely, only to let the words exist for a while. Some people read to escape. She reads to arrive. The sentences do not demand her attention. They unfold at their own pace, allowing her thoughts to drift without pulling her away completely. When she reaches the end of a paragraph, she pauses, not turning the page right away. Outside, another light flickers on across the street, then another, further down. Willowmere does this without hurry, as if the village itself prefers not to be startled into night. Her reflection appears faintly in the window glass. Not sharp, not insistent, just layered over the street beyond. She notices it. Without studying it, she looks content, not smiling, not serious, simply present. Valentine's Day has passed. It did not announce itself loudly this year. It never really does here. Willowmere does not lean into occasions. It allows them to pass through, leaving only what belongs. There was a time when evenings like this would have felt incomplete to her, as if something essential had been misplaced, as if quiet itself were a reminder of absence. Now, the stillness feels whole. She turns another page. The sound is barely there, a soft brushing that blends into the room. Somewhere deeper in the shop, the building settles with a faint creak, wood responding to the cooling air outside. She closes the book gently and rests her hand on its cover. There is a small stack of books near the counter that need returning to their shelves. Not because they must be done now, simply because they are ready. She gathers them one by one. Each book is carried with care, not reverence, just attention. She places them back where they belong, guided not by labels or order, but by a sense she trusts. This one fits here. That one rests better there. The shelves receive them without comment. As she moves through the shop, she notices small signs of the day that was: a fingerprint smudged faintly on the glass of a display case, a receipt folded and left behind on a table, a scarf draped over the back of a chair, forgotten without urgency. She lifts the scarf. It is soft, worn in places. She folds it once, then again, and places it beside the counter. It will be collected later, or tomorrow, or not at all. That is allowed. She returns to the counter and opens the small drawer beneath it, the one that holds what has been left behind. Inside are other items waiting without insistence. A pair of gloves, a notebook once, a note written in careful handwriting. She places the folded scarf inside, then closes the drawer slowly. Things are allowed to wait here. The card still rests on the counter. She considers it for a moment longer this time, then slides it gently into the same drawer. Not hidden, just kept. She turns off one of the overhead lights. The change is immediate, but gentle. The shop grows quieter at the edges. Shadows deepen, corners soften. The remaining lamps glow steadily, enough to guide without demanding attention. She slips on her coat, smoothing the fabric at the shoulder, then at the sleeve. The movement feels familiar, practiced over many evenings. At the door, she pauses, not to check anything, not to remember, just to stand. She looks around once more. The shelves, the table, the chair near the window, the book resting open where she left it. Everything is enough. She turns the key in the lock. The sound is small, contained. It does not echo. Outside, the evening waits. As she steps into the street, cool air meets her face without surprise. The shop remains behind her, not closed off, not abandoned, simply resting, holding its stories quietly until morning. She pulls her coat a little closer and begins to walk. And Willowmere, unhurried as ever, opens itself gently around her. The door of the bookshop closes behind her with a sound so soft it almost disappears. She does not look back, not because she is finished with the place, but because it no longer needs her attention. The street opens slowly, as if giving her time to arrive in it fully. The air is cold but calm, the kind of cold that does not press against the body, but rests lightly on the skin. February has shifted. The snow that fell weeks ago remains only in traces now. Along the edges of the pavement, pressed thin and grayed by passing feet, it no longer sparkles. It simply stays, doing its quiet work of absorbing sound. She walks without intention. In Willowmere, walking is rarely about destination. It is about allowing the evening to stretch itself around you. Streetlights glow in no particular order. One here, another further down. Each one creates a small island of warmth that fades gently into the next. There are no sharp transitions. The night arrives gradually, as if it knows it is welcome. Her steps find their rhythm without effort, not hurried, not slow, just steady. She notices how different the street feels now that the shops have closed. Without reflection in the windows, without movement behind the glass, the village seems to draw inward. What remains feels essential. A curtain shifts somewhere above her. A light dims, then steadies again. These things do not interrupt her walk. They accompany it. She passes the cafe without stopping. The door is closed, the sign turned inside. The chairs are still where they were left earlier, legs touching the floor lightly. Cups sit on tables, empty now, no longer needed. She does not look for anyone inside. Knowing the place is there is enough. Further along, the street narrows slightly. Houses sit closer together here, their shapes softened by years of weather. Some windows glow warmly, others are already dark. In one window, a lamp rests low on a table, its shade tilted just slightly to one side. A chair sits nearby, unoccupied. A blanket hangs over the back, ready. She notices these details without collecting them. They are not hers to carry. Her breath rises faintly in the cold, then disappears. The sound of it blends easily into the quiet. Ahead, At the bend where the street curves toward the square, she sees movement, the post carrier. He walks at the same pace he always does. His steps even familiar. His bag rests against his hip, the strap worn smooth where it crosses his shoulder. He does not hurry, and he does not linger. She slows slightly, not to meet him, but because the space allows it. He notices her and lifts his hand, not high, not dramatic, just enough. She lifts hers in return. No words pass between them. They do not need to. He continues on, his steps pressing lightly into the thin snow. The sound fades quickly, absorbed by the evening. She watches until he turns the corner and disappears from view. The street feels wider again once he is gone. The square opens itself quietly. The bare tree stands at its center, branches thin and patient against the darkening sky. Snow clings to them in small amounts, just enough to soften their outline. The bench beneath remains empty. She pauses here, not because she is tired, not because she is deciding anything, just because this place has learned how to hold a moment. The village does not ask her to move on. She stands with her hands tucked into her coat pockets, feeling the shape of the evening around her. The air smells faintly of cold stone and something warm from inside the houses. Somewhere nearby, a door closes carefully. The sound is gentle, as if aware of the quiet it enters. She resumes her walk. The school stands a little further on, set back from the road. Its windows are dark now, except for one near the entrance. Light spills out faintly, pale against the stone. A figure moves inside, the teacher. She stands near the doorway, her outline visible through the glass. Her coat is on. Her scarf is looped loosely around her neck. She reaches for the switch beside the door. For a moment, she hesitates. Then the light goes out. The building settles into darkness without resistance. The door opens, then closes again behind her. The sound is small, contained. The teacher pauses at the top of the steps, adjusting her scarf. She does not see her, and she does not need to. The presence is enough. She watches as the figure moves away, footsteps light, unhurried. The school returns to stillness. She continues on. Beyond the square, the street curves gently toward her own part of the village. The houses here feel quieter, more inward. Lights are lower. Curtains are drawn a little further. She notices how the evening seems to slow as she walks. Or perhaps it is her body that has learned how to move differently now that the day is done. Nothing is being asked of her. No one is waiting. This does not feel empty. It feels complete. She passes a house where a kettle hums softly behind the window. Steam curls upward, briefly visible, then gone. In another, a radio murmurs low, not loud enough to form words. These sounds do not pull her in. They simply exist alongside her. The snow grows thinner the closer she comes to home. Here, the pavement shows through almost completely. The world feels clearer, less muffled. She adjusts her coat slightly, not because she is cold, but because the gesture feels familiar, grounding. Her thoughts drift without direction. She does not think about Valentine's Day. She does not think about what comes next. She thinks only of the way the street curves, of the way the lights soften at the edges, of how little she needs in this moment. By the time she reaches the quieter bend that leads toward her home, the village has grown very still, not silent, just settled. She slows again, then stops for a brief moment. The night does not rush her when she moves on. It is with the quiet assurance that she is exactly where she needs to be, not because something led her here, but because nothing pulled her away. And as she continues toward the darker stretch of the street ahead, Willowmere remains behind her, not closing, not ending, simply holding the evening open. She continues walking after the square, letting the quieter streets take her in. The village changes here, subtly but unmistakably. Houses stand a little further apart. Light no longer spills so freely onto the road. What remains feels more private, more inward. Her steps soften. She notices how her body has begun to move differently now that she is closer to home. Shoulders less raised, breathing slower, deeper, as if the evening has finally caught up with her, or perhaps she has caught up with it. She passes a low stone wall dusted with old snow. She rests her hand on it briefly. The cold grounds her, steady and real beneath her palm. For a moment, she thinks of nothing at all. Then, without effort, her thoughts return not as worries, but as reflections that drift in and out like breath. There was a time when evenings like this felt like pauses between more important things, as if being alone were only a waiting room for something else. Now it feels different. Now it feels chosen. The street bends gently to the left, and ahead she sees the cafe again, not the front this time, but the side entrance, where light still glows faintly behind frosted glass. She had not planned to stop, but the evening does not seem to mind. She reaches for the handle and steps inside. Warmth meets her immediately, familiar and soft. The cafe is quieter now than before, almost hushed. Only a few lights remain on, low and amber. The cafe listener stands behind the counter, not working now, just resting her hands on the wood as if listening to the room itself. "You're still awake," she says gently, not surprised. "So are you," she replies. The woman smiles. "I like the cafe best like this." She nods. "Me too." They stand for a moment without moving toward each other. There is no urgency to fill the space. "Would you like something warm?" the cafe listener asks. "I don't need much," she says, "but I'd like to stay for a minute." "That's allowed," the woman replies easily. She sits at the table closest to the window. Outside, the street is quiet now, the glass reflecting only faint shape. The cafe listener pours tea without asking which kind. She brings it over, sets it down, and sits across from her. "You seem settled tonight," she says. Not as an observation, but as a noticing. "I feel that way," she replies. "It's comfortable." The woman nods. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to admit. She considers this. "It used to be," They sip their tea in silence. Valentine's Day always makes the cafe feel louder, the cafe listener says after a while, even when nothing really happens. Yes, she says, as if everyone is measuring something and coming up short. The woman adds softly. She looks down at her cup. I don't feel short tonight. The cafe listener's expression softens. That matters. I think I finally understand that being content doesn't mean being closed, she says. It just means I'm not waiting anymore. The woman smiles, warm and steady. That sounds like you've come home to yourself. She breathes out slowly. It does. They finish their tea without rushing. When she stands, the cafe listener reaches across the table and touches her hand briefly, not to hold it, just to acknowledge it. Sleep well. When you get there, she says. I will, she replies. And she believes it. Outside again, the night feels deeper now, more settled, as if the village has drawn a blanket over itself. She walks on. The distance between the cafe and the next street feels longer than before, but not empty. She notices the way light fades from window to window, how some houses have gone completely dark, while others hold one small lamp left on without explanation. She passes the laundrette, now quiet, machines still, windows dark. The warmth remains inside, stored in walls that know how to keep it. Further on, the street narrows again. This part of Willowmere feels older, slower, the pavement uneven beneath her feet. She thinks about how many small moments make up a sense of belonging. Not declarations, not milestones, but gestures that do not ask for return. Ahead, a door opens. The mother steps out, pulling her shawl closer around her shoulders. She pauses when she sees her. I thought I heard footsteps, she says. I hope I'm not disturbing you, she replies. Not at all, the woman says. I was just about to set this outside to cool. She holds up a small pot, steam curling faintly from beneath the lid. You've made too much again, she says, smiling. The woman laughs softly. I always do. She hesitates, then adds, would you take some? It's easier to share than to store. She nods. I'd like that. The mother steps aside and hands her the pot. Their fingers brush briefly, warm against the cold. You don't always have to come in, the woman says, reading her hesitation easily. But you're welcome whenever you want to. I know, she replies. That means more than you think. They stand for a moment in the open doorway, warmth spilling gently onto the street. You're doing well, the mother says suddenly. Not proudly, not approvingly, just stating it as a truth. She feels it land somewhere deep. Thank you. The woman nods once. Good night, dear. Good night. She walks on, the warmth of the pot steady in her hands. The street grows darker now, closer to her own door. Her pace slows naturally, careful not to spill what she is carrying, not just the soup, but the quiet fullness of the evening. She reaches her house at last. The light inside is low, waiting. She unlocks the door and steps in, closing it gently behind her. Outside, Willowmere continues its quiet work of holding everyone exactly where they are. Inside, she sets the pot down, removes her coat, and stands still for a moment. Nothing feels unfinished. Nothing feels missing. And for the first time in a long while, she does not feel like the evening is something she needs to move through. It is something she is allowed to stay inside. The house receives her without ceremony. The door closes softly behind her, the sound small enough to disappear almost immediately into the walls. Warmth gathers around her coat before she has time to notice the cold leaving her body. She stands still, not because she is tired, not because she is deciding what to do next, only because there is no longer any reason to keep moving. The evening has brought her here. She slips out of her coat and hangs it where it always goes. The fabric settles into place easily, familiar with the hook. Her shoes are set by the door, not aligned, just placed. The house does not mind. Inside, the light is low. One lamp glows in the next room, amber and steady. It does not reach into every corner. It does not need to. She moves slowly now, her steps quieter than before. The floor creaks once beneath her weight, then falls silent again. The sound feels like a greeting rather than an interruption. She sets down what she has brought with her. The small pot is still warm. She rests it on the counter, careful but not precise. Steam curls faintly from beneath the lid and disappears into the air. She does not open it yet. There is time. She fills the kettle with water, the sound brief and contained, then sets it on the stove. The flame ignites with a soft click, steady and patient. She does not rush this part. Nothing here asks to be hurried. While the water warms, she rests her hands on the counter. The surface is cool beneath her palms, grounding. She leans into it slightly, just enough to feel supported. Outside the window, the street has grown quieter still. A light across the way flickers once, then steadies. Snow no longer falls. What remains lies undisturbed. Inside, the house holds its shape. She becomes aware of her breathing, not because she tries to slow it, but because it has already begun to settle. In, out. The kettle hums softly, then grows louder, then settles into its familiar rhythm. She turns it off before it whistles. It does not need to announce itself. She pours the water into a mug and carries it with her into the next room. The living space is unchanged from when she left this morning, and that constancy feels reassuring rather than dull. A chair near the window. A blanket folded over the arm, not neatly, just ready. A book resting face down on the table, marking its place without insistence. She sets the mug down and sits. The chair receives her easily, as if it has been waiting. She exhales a longer breath than the ones she took outside. Her shoulders lower. Her hands rest loosely in her lap. This is where the evening shifts, not outwardly, inward. She looks around without searching. The plant by the window holds its leaves close, dark against the glass. It does not grow quickly in winter. It is not expected to. The house understands this. She notices how little she needs in this moment. Warmth, light, a place to rest. There was a time when being alone like this would have felt unfinished, as if something essential had not yet arrived, as if contentment were only temporary, dependent on what might come next. Now, there is no sense of waiting. She lifts the mug and takes a slow sip. The warmth spreads gradually, moving from her hands inward. She sets it down again and lets it be. Her thoughts move gently, without edge. She thinks of the people she passed this evening, not individually, not in sequence, but as a presence that lingers like a soft aftertaste. Not because she needs them to be here, but because knowing they exist alongside her feels comforting. Connection, she realizes, does not always require closeness. Sometimes it is enough to know that others are living their evenings too. She shifts slightly in the chair and pulls the blanket over her legs. The fabric is familiar, softened by use. It settles where it needs to, without adjustment. The house seems to respond by remaining exactly as it is. Time stretches here. Minutes pass without announcing themselves. The clock on the wall marks the hour quietly, without insistence. It does not hurry her toward anything. She notices how her body feels now. Not light, not heavy, simply present. She opens the book on the table, but does not read. Instead, she lets it rest open, pages catching the lamplight without being asked to perform. Words will be there later, or tomorrow, or another night. She thinks briefly of Valentine's Day, not the day itself, but what it represents for many people. Expectation, comparison, the idea that love must look a certain way to be real. The thought passes through her without resistance. What she feels now is quieter than that, less visible, more enduring. Love, she realizes, does not always move outward. Sometimes it settles inward, deep enough that it no longer needs to prove itself. This realization does not arrive as relief or triumph. It arrives as recognition, as something she has known for a long time, but only now has allowed herself to name. She does not feel closed. She feels complete. She stands and returns to the kitchen, opening the pot at last. The scent rises gently, warm and grounding. She pours a small amount into a bowl, not because she is hungry, but because the ritual feels right. She eats slowly, without distraction. Each movement feels deliberate, unhurried. There is no one to keep pace with, no one to impress, no one waiting for her to finish. The rest can wait. When she is done, she rinses the bowl and sets it aside. The pot is covered again, placed in the refrigerator. There will be more tomorrow or another day. She returns to the living room and sits once more. The night deepens outside, but the house holds its steady warmth. A car passes once, then is gone. The sound fades quickly, absorbed by distance and walls. She closes her eyes briefly, not to sleep, just to rest them. In the quiet behind her eyelids, she feels the absence of tension she did not know she was carrying. It has loosened somewhere between the cafe and her front door, between recognition and return. She breathes. In, out, there is nothing left to sort, nothing left to prepare. Tomorrow will arrive. Whether she thinks about it or not, it always does. Tonight does not require her attention. She opens her eyes again, and lets her gaze settle on the soft circle of lamplight. Dust moves slowly within it, visible only because the light allows it. Even this feels enough. She does not name what she feels. She does not need to. The evening has done its work, and for now, staying right here within herself feels like the most natural thing in the world. The night has settled fully now, not suddenly, not decisively. It has arrived the way it always does, by staying. She does not mark the moment when it becomes night. There is no clear signal, no sound to announce it. The light outside simply changes its quality, growing deeper, less reflective. What remains feels held rather than visible. Inside, the house continues as it was. The lamp still glows softly, its circle of light unchanged. The chair holds her weight without complaint. The room does not rearrange itself to accommodate the passing hours. Time moves differently here. She notices this without thinking about it. Her body has grown still, but not rigid, comfortable, supported. The kind of stillness that comes not from exhaustion, but from having nowhere else to go. She breathes in, out. The rhythm does not need guidance. It finds itself. She looks around the room again, but more slowly now, as if her eyes have learned a new pace. The edges blur gently, not from fatigue, but from familiarity. Nothing demands to be focused on. The plant by the window stands quietly, leaves dark and glossy. It has not grown today. It has not been expected to. Winter allows things to remain as they are. She feels grateful for that. For a long time, she believed that gratitude required something to have changed, something to have improved, something to have been earned. Now, gratitude feels quieter than that. It feels like noticing the room smells faintly of warmth and something clean. The remains of the tea, the soup she shared, the quiet trace of the day she has left behind. She shifts slightly in the chair, adjusting her position without thought. The blanket moves with her, settling again where it belongs. She does not think about tomorrow, not because she avoids it, but because it does not need her attention yet. The idea of the morning exists somewhere beyond the walls, patient, unconcerned. It will arrive whether she prepares for it or not. Tonight belongs to itself. She allows her gaze to soften further, letting it rest on the window. Outside, the streetlight casts a muted glow across the glass. Snow remains along the edges of the road, unchanged, undisturbed. No footsteps pass, no doors open. Willowmere has grown very quiet now, not empty, just complete. She feels the echo of the evening still within her, not as memory, but as something settled. The warmth of the cafe, the brief conversations, the ease of being seen without being required. None of it pulls at her. It rests. She thinks of how often she used to measure her evenings by what they lacked, how she would replay moments, wondering if she had missed something, if she should have done more, reached out further, stayed longer. Those thoughts do not visit her tonight. They do not feel relevant here. What she feels instead is a gentle assurance, not spoken, not dramatic, simply a sense that this quiet, this stillness, this unremarkable moment is enough. She does not name it as self-love. The word feels too deliberate, too shaped. What she feels is more like trust. Trust in the fact that nothing essential is missing. She closes her eyes again, not to sleep, but to rest inside herself. Behind her eyelids, the darkness is soft, not pressing, not heavy. It feels like a space that does not need to be filled. Her breathing deepens slightly. In, out. The house makes a small sound, wood settling, a gentle click from the heating system adjusting. These sounds are familiar. They do not interrupt her rest, they accompany it. She becomes aware of her hands resting loosely in her lap, fingers relaxed, not clenched. This is new enough that she notices it. There was a time when her hands were always preparing, holding, gripping. Tonight, they are empty, and this does not feel like loss. It feels like permission. She opens her eyes once more, letting them rest on the room without focusing on any single thing. The light, the shadows, the shapes she knows by heart. Nothing has changed since she last looked, and that steadiness feels comforting. She thinks briefly of the people in the village, each settled into their own evenings now. The cafe dark, the laundrette quiet, houses holding their warmth behind drawn curtains. Each life continuing, gently, without needing to intersect. She does not feel alone in this. She feels accompanied by the knowledge that others are resting too. The night deepens outside, but inside the house, nothing shifts. The lamp does not flicker. The room does not grow colder. The quiet remains stable. She leans her head back slightly, allowing it to rest against the chair. This, she realizes, is what it means to arrive not at a place, not at a conclusion, but at a sense of being finished with effort. She does not need to prove anything tonight, not to herself, not to anyone else. The world will not shrink if she remains still. It will continue, as it always does. Her breathing slows again, settling into a rhythm that feels natural, unforced. She follows it for a few cycles, then lets go of even that. Time passes. Minutes, perhaps, or more. She does not count. There is a moment subtle enough that she almost misses it when she feels a gentle warmth spread through her chest. Not excitement, not emotion, recognition. A quiet understanding that she has chosen herself this evening, not by refusing others, but by allowing herself to remain. This choice does not feel loud or defiant. It feels ordinary. And that, she realizes, is what makes it lasting. She opens her eyes one last time and looks towards the window. The light outside has dimmed further now, softened by distance and cloud. The snow reflects faintly, barely visible. The village sleeps, or perhaps it simply rests. She smiles, just slightly, not because something has gone particularly well, not because she expects anything from the night, but because she feels at ease with what is. She allows the smile to fade naturally, without holding on to it. The lamp continues to glow. The chair continues to hold her. The house remains steady around her. And the night, unhurried and kind, asks nothing more. For now, this is enough. Sleep may come later, or it may not. Either way, she is safe. Either way, she is complete, and the quiet will hold her exactly as she is.